Hi, I'm Dr. Daniel Bowman, and I'm here to teach you what to me is the most important principle of being successful. And I call this learning to succeed because learning is the most important mindset and tool you have to be successful. And I was working yesterday on a golf course with some young golfers, and I told them we were going to learn something new. And one of them said, "Oh, this is going to hurt. This is not going to be fun." And I said, "Why?" And she said, "Learning's just not fun." And I said, "Learning is always fun. It's how you grow." And it's just a lot of people have this either conscious or unconscious mindset that learning is not fun. What makes matters worse is that all of us have ego, a sense of who we are. And there's a natural tendency to protect ego, to not embarrass yourself, that's fine, but it gets worse in that ego is also does not want to be wrong. There's this natural sense of not wanting to be wrong. And that means you don't want criticism. In fact, the best way to get rid of people you really don't want very close in your life is to just go ahead and criticize them about everything you can. When I think back to that book, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. And the way you win friends and influence people is just be nice and stroke their ego. Call them by their name, tell them they're awesome. So people really don't want their ego challenged. They try to protect it. And that protective nature makes learning scary because people, I think, associate it with ignorance and humility. And the reality is learning does mean we have ignorance, and it should mean we're humble. And it's just not an easy and natural state for people to want to get into this learning mode. But we love to learn. Deep down, most of us do. If you think about a kid playing video games, once they've mastered that game, or you playing any game that you play, once they've completely mastered it, it's not fun anymore and they don't want to play it. Once they have learned what they can learn and it's easy, it's no longer fun. So deep down, part of us wants to learn, but we protect that ego. And in order to be successful, whether it's in business or sports or weight loss, you're going to have to learn every day. And you're going to have to learn over the course of the year. And you're going to have to learn that if it's in business, that market conditions change. If it's in sports, techniques even change. And if it's in weight loss, the information that we believe is best changes. I mean, not the major information, but a lot of small changes occur every year. Like we'll say, well, this is not working anymore. Or, a glycemic load is far more important than we ever realized. It's not just a calorie. So there's this new information that comes through research and experience, but we have to be open to it. And then within the course of a day or a game or a journey, we have to be willing to learn along the way. I work with a baseball player for one of the best hitting teams in America, and I asked him, what's going through your team's mind during the games, and they are sharing information with each other about the pitcher or the different pitchers they're facing. So they've watched film and gathered as much information as they could beforehand, but as the game's going on, they're looking for new information and communicating with each other. And they're seeing themselves as learning during the course of the game. For instance, they might notice that if a pitcher throws a successful pitch for a strike, he immediately throws that same pitch again, which is called doubling up. So people have that tendency. And so they catch on to that. and they share it with each other. And they grow as a team during the course of a day. But again, we don't like to be wrong, and our ego can be very protected. And we don't like to make mistakes. One of the probably the most common issue that I hear from athletes, seeking help with their mental game is, okay, if I strike out, or if I lose a game in tennis, or if I miss a three-point shot, how do I let that go and not make it start cascading into, a negative mindset that causes me to miss, more and more shots? And that, to me, the best way is to see yourself as a learner, to see yourself as someone who is learning during the game. And as long as you say, well, I'm learning, then you're going to take that information and not let it overwhelm you, but allow it to improve you. A lot of this concept in a bigger sense comes from a social psychologist, Carol Dweck, who has written a book called Mindset. Her video, The Power of Yet, is quite good. But what Carol Dweck teaches kids is that if you don't get math or some learning situation, instead of saying, oh, I'm no good at math, I can't do this, just say, I'm not there yet. And she teaches children to see themselves as learners, not as fixed beings that cannot grow. So the only way to grow is to learn. And when children stop seeing themselves as either good at math or bad at math, but as people who, as long as they are using effort and sticking with it, will grow and get good, it transforms how they perform on standardized tests and how well they learn math and even their enjoyment of it. So again, whatever it is you're doing, take this learning mentality with you. Remove yourself of ego in order to grow. Look for criticism. Now, sometimes people are critical of you because they don't have good self-esteem themselves and want to put you down. But when an expert is being critical, you should take their advice into account and test it out. You want an open mind. I have a lot of ideas about how to be successful in business, or how to be successful in sports, or how to be successful in weight loss. I have a lot of ideas. I've spent my whole career studying these things. But I read, and every day I read material that contrast with my viewpoints. I intentionally listen to other sides. Just for one thing, I think, say, glycemic index, which is how sugary foods are, is important, but I don't think it's as important as glycemic load, which is how much sugar there is per volume of the food. Like watermelon is very sugary, but it has a high glycemic index, but a low glycemic load. So to me, watermelon is a good food because it's really not high concentration of sugar for the volume you eat or the calories you eat. Watermelon is mostly water. But a lot of people say, well, it's got a high glycemic index, so you shouldn't eat it. But I still read that, and they say it's the effects on insulin, all these different things. I read that material, and I'm not still 100% convinced that in a year I'll tell you I still see watermelon as a good food. Right now I do. And I see glycemic load is more important than glycemic index. But there's studies that they're doing all the time. And I keep an open mind, and I read things that contradict. And then you have to watch how it plays out for people. How does it play out for you? How does it play out for others? And so we have to, even our most important ideas on being successful, We want to be open-minded to other views to consider. And when things are not working, instead of being discouraged, just learn, and you will learn to succeed.